Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the design and specifications of the iFi Go Blue. We'll go over the design really quickly and the build quality. The design is really cool. I like the color combinations they have going on here. They have this matte kind of, it almost has a kind of a soft touch feel. It's not quite like rubber, but it does have a soft texture to it. The front here, this is not metal actually. It's made out of a polymer, I guess, to minimize Bluetooth interference, but it does look like it actually is metal. So I like the look of this. I think the design is very unique, kind of stands out, I think, among its peers. iFi, I think, always has a really unique approach to their designs, but as you can see, the build quality is just quite excellent, and feels good in the hand. It's not heavy, but it does have a little bit of weight to it. It doesn't feel cheap at all. The button, the little knob here, the volume knob, feels really, really nice, and it also has the center of this actually has, it's a button, and it's independent from the actual knob itself, but that's basically a play pause function, and we'll go over the rest of the buttons here shortly. This comes in at $199. It has Bluetooth 5.1. As far as the Bluetooth codecs that it's capable of decoding: aptX Adaptive, aptX HD, LDAC, and also the HWA, LHDC, has of course the regular aptX, and aptX Low Latency, AAC, and SBC. So pretty much every Bluetooth format you could that you'll ever need. As far as battery life, this will give you about 10 hours of playtime, which I tested that, and that is accurate. This utilizes the Qualcomm 4-core QCC 5100 and the Cirrus Logic 32-bit DAC chip. So this does operate as a Bluetooth and also a USB DAC. If you're using it as a USB DAC, this can decode and render up to 24-bit at 96 kilohertz. It also has a microphone built in, so if you want to use this for phone calls, you can do that as well. As far as the inputs and outputs, of course, you have the USB Type-C input here. This is so you can charge it or hook it up to a phone or a laptop or a PC. And you have your outputs here. You have a 4.4, which this can put out 245 milliwatts at 32 ohms, and your 3.5, 165 milliwatts at 32 ohms. Now, as far as the buttons, on this side you have the main power button. Over here you've got the X base and X space button. This button here in the middle of the volume knob functions as a play pause, and I think you can actually skip forward with that one as well, I think with a quick double press. You have an LED indicator on top here for your X base and X space that tells you which mode you're in, and you have the power LED on the bottom. Let's quickly go over the X base and X space button. If you push it one time, what that does is it activates the X base, and the light turns yellow. If you push it again, that activates the X space. So of course, going back just real quick, the X bass gives you a little bit of a sub bass boost. Then when you activate the X space, again indicated by the blue or the cyan light here, that gives you kind of a more of a, it's supposed to expand the sound field a little bit, give you kind of expand your sound stage. If you push that again, it turns white, and that activates both the X bass and X space. So you have the enhanced imaging and soundstage, and the sub bass boost activated at the same time. And if you push it again, that turns that function off. Okay, so let's talk about the sound of the iFi Go Blue. We'll talk about the overall sound signature, then we'll talk about the treble, mids, bass, technicalities, and then we'll also talk about the X bass button here. Let's go over the overall sound signature first. The overall sound signature, I would say, definitely falls into that warm category, much like a lot of iFi's other products, the iFi IDSD Micro and the iFi Diablo. Of course, those utilize the Brown DAC chip, which has a warmer sound signature to it. This is not quite as warm as either of those, but I would still definitely categorize this as a warm sound signature. So you've got that slight emphasis on the lower mids and the mid bass, again, just slight. Now, as far as the treble, the treble is very good. You've got very good detail retrieval in the treble, good air. So if you've got a pair of IEMs that has good treble extension, and you can hear all of the upper treble frequencies above 10K, this will definitely give you all of that. So if you listening to a live recording that has that air and that atmosphere, this will definitely give you all of that. Cymbals sound very natural. There's good detail in cymbals, good sizzle in hi-hats. The mids are very good. Definitely, again, a little bit more mid bass forward, tokening male vocals and some of those lower tones maybe in upright bass or in lower notes on a keyboard or synthesizer. But as far as the trumpets, pianos, guitars, again, male vocals, female vocals all sound very natural. Now, again, when you have the warm sound signature, you've got that little bit of a mid bass bump, a little bit of a mid bass emphasis. Again, tokening male vocals, and as you get into the lower mids and the mid bass, you still maintain really good texture, good layering, and good slam, good punch in the bass and the sub bass. So overall, throughout the frequency spectrum, I would say this is good, very good detail retrieval and really natural sounding. Now, as far as the X bass button, when you activate the X bass, what that does is it only gives you a sub bass boost for the most part. That's what I noticed. So it didn't bleed into the lower mids and mid bass at all. So with the X bass activated, you still had good texture and layering in the mid bass, lower mids and mid bass. So I would say that was actually a really clean implementation of that. I found myself listening to that a little more than I usually do. I've talked about it in the past. I'm not one to typically use any kind of sound processing unless it's really, really well implemented. And this is definitely a well-implemented bass boost. Now, as far as the X space, what that does is that enhances the sound field, which it does do that quite well. It does kind of open up the space and the sound stage a little bit more. But one thing I did notice that it affects is the density and the placement of the instruments. So it just seemed like the instrument imaging and placement and density was a little better with the X space off. So depending on what your preference is, if you like a little more of an open sound field, you can activate that X space, and that does a good job of giving a little more space. But again, I did notice that the instruments and vocals the instrument placement and instrument density is just a little lighter. It's not quite as defined as it is with it turned off. Now, with the X bass and the X space activated at the same time, again, you've got that little sub bass boost, and it opens up the sound stage. So I would say that actually does exactly what it says it's supposed to do, and it sounds really, really good. But most of my testing was with both of those off. Now, as far as the outputs here, you got the 4.4 output. I did notice that there is a little bit of background noise with both of these. I did notice that with my Campfire Andromedas. Noticed it on the quieter tracks, so there were a couple of tracks that were just guitar and vocal. Did notice a little bit of background hiss, and definitely noticed it in between songs when there's nothing playing at all. I did not notice it at all on my Kinnear Nanas. Matter of fact, my other IEMs, generally speaking, I didn't notice it to the point of it being distracting at all. The Mest MK1 did notice a little bit of a background noise, but it wasn't distracting at all. I would say I noticed it the most on the Andromedas here. So as far as the overall sound output, I would say we have here a very high quality product. I would say that iFi did a really good job with this little DAC, especially for the $199 price range. I know there's a lot of competition out here right now, but I would say this definitely holds its own within this price category. The overall build quality is good. The implementation of the X bass is good. Design is good, and the overall sound is very good. So I would say iFi put out an excellent product. Again, for the price $199, this is a great little product. So that concludes my review of the iFi Go Blue. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Please like this video, please share this video, and please subscribe to my channel. I hope you guys have an awesome day.